Hi, Lee here. So a quick update on where we are with the guitar. Obviously I've cut the body out, I've made the neck. I'm really happy with this, as I said in the last video. I just wanted to show a few things on how I get the neck to look like this, because it's a lot better than I was expecting. So very important, first of all, I got a sanding block with a radius. So this particular block has a 10-inch radius one side and a 12-inch radius the other. I was thinking of changing the radius on this fretboard. It was 12 to 10, but I decided against that. But to get the fretboard completely level on the neck, this radius block was important. As you can see, I've already sticky back sellotaped some sandpaper to it, fine sandpaper, and I've already been over it, so you've missed that part of the video. I just did that the other evening. But what it means now is the neck and the fretboard is perfectly flat. So it's well, not perfectly flat. It has a 12-inch radius, but it all looks perfect. It's not bent in any way. So the next thing I want to do is put some frets on it. I've been out and I've bought some fret wire. It's just jumbo fret wire. I think it's actually a little too thick, but you live and learn, I suppose. I'll probably order slightly thinner fret wire next time. I've already put one fret on there just for the practice. I don't know if you can see that, but that is it's a 3mm fret wire. I mean, it looks okay, but some of the tools I'll be using for this, obviously I'm going to need a hammer. I've bought this little radius block as well for the fret. So this is really good at when you put the fret on, I can actually hammer on top of that and it makes sure the radius of the fret stays the same as the fretboard. So that's going to be really important, and it's worked really well. I've got a fret rubber as well, very, very fine fret rubber. I think it's a 400 grit fret rubber, so that should make sure everything's nice and polished. Of course, I've got some snips to cut the fret wire with, a big file to start filing the frets down at the ends, and of course a set of very small files to finish off the frets. So like I say, I've practiced once, the results look good, so that's one fret in. It feels good, it looks really good. So now I'm going to move on and put the rest of the frets in. You may wonder why I'm in my office doing this on my desk at the moment. It's freezing in the garage, so I thought I'd bring this job inside. It's not dusty, so hopefully I'll get away with it. I'm just hoping I don't crack my glass desk trying to hammer in these frets. But hey, good fun. I'd rather stay in the warm and risk that than go in the garage at the moment. So a couple of things to show you to start with. So I bought a reel of fret wire. Well, it's about 3 meters or 5 meters, I can't remember now. So I've got 5 meters of fret wire. It's already curled, but just before I start cutting, I thought I'd take my 12-inch radius and I would just check the curve that's already on there from the packaging, and I will try and make it match now. So I'm just stretching out the curve slightly, just to try and match the radius, and then that will give me a head start. So if you see this, I'll just stretch out the natural curl in the fret because it comes pre-curled. Check it against my 12-inch radius and just try and get them to match. And we're about there, so that's good. So what I'll do now is I'll start lining the frets up, cutting them off, and then I'll get down to filing them all. I would imagine this is going to take me quite a while, but it's going to be good fun trying. So this was quite time consuming. I've got a long reel of fret wire, so I cut a small section off of each one. As you can see, I've got a rubber mallet that I use to hammer the fret into the slot. Now I know some people glue the frets in, but I didn't really think of that and I didn't want to, and they're in pretty tight. So as it turns out, this pre-cut fretboard I didn't really need to glue them in at all, so I'm pleased about that. That's one less thing to do. What I realise now is buying the pre-cut fretboard probably didn't save me that much time, so I think next time I'm just going to buy a blank fretboard, radius, and cut it myself, because that's the only piece of this guitar I didn't really build. So I'll do that next time, and I'll put my own inlays in as well. At this moment, cutting the ends of the frets off, what I didn't realise at the time is I thought I would have to then file all of the ends, but as it turns out, I was very surprised to learn when I went to see my granddad, he's actually got an old grinder, which he doesn't use anymore. He used to use it when he did some woodwork, so he gave it to me. So using this grinder now to do the frets, just get rid of the bulk of the fret wire, that must have saved me a couple of hours at least in filing. But the one piece of advice, you must wear eyewear with this sort of machinery. So I was wearing some eye protection, and I think that's very important. That's really saved me some time, and I'm pleased that he gave me that, so that was very nice of him. So I'm back in the garage now, it's warmed up a bit. I've now done the frets, I've done the edges, they're pretty smooth now. But what I want to do is I want to level the frets before I do the final touches and re-crown them, just to make them as perfect as I can make them. So of course, to do that, I've got some really fine sanding paper put onto my radius block. So remember, I'm using a 12-inch radius. The sandpaper's stuck down with sticky back plastic. So all that's left to do now is I just want to start rubbing up and down to make sure all the frets are level. I've got a straight edge to check. So hopefully within the next few minutes I'll know where the issues are. Now a top tip is to put marker pen on all of the frets. So then as you're rubbing down you can actually see where's rubbing and where is a bit lower. And using the marker pen on all the frets, you can then gauge how smooth the whole fretboard is. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go and get a marker and draw it on each of the frets. As you can see, I've also covered the fretboard now because this can start getting a bit messy with all this metal dust. So let me go and get a marker, and then I'll start off and I'll start rubbing this fretboard down, and hopefully it'll be nice and level to move on to the next step, which would be routing the body. So just to close this episode out, I wanted to show you the completed neck now I've finished it. So the things I had to go through just to get it to this condition, lots of filing. So I went over all of the frets and I got rid of all the sharp edges, and I re-crowned some of the frets as well, because from the rubbing down obviously some of them go a bit flatter than others. So I've done all that. That took quite a few hours to do. You may have seen me use the fret level. So I've used that across as well as a long straight edge, which I've used to check. I've also put a bit of sandpaper on this straight edge as well. So when I was going over the fretboard, it just meant I can do individual areas and still keep everything level. And finally, I have a fret rubber. So I've used this just to go over all the frets and the edges. It's very slightly abrasive, and it just cleans and polishes and tidies everything up. The last thing I did is I decided, because the neck and the body are made out of the same wood, but I actually didn't want them to match. So I think I'm going to just clear oil the body, but the neck I use some boiled linseed oil, just so it gives it a slightly darker look. And I'm really pleased with the way this has turned out. So I don't know if you can see that, but it's a lovely colour. All the frets are in, they all look good. I've also filed out the nut slot and put a nut in. I've not glued the nut in yet, it's a little bit loose, but I'm going to wait until I've got some strings on so I can do it properly. And just a reminder of all the tools. So obviously straight edges, fret rubber, very fine sandpaper, fret level, and of course the radius sanding blocks. I think this has been one of the most important pieces of or tool that I could have bought, and I'm going to be using this a lot. So I'm planning to build another guitar after this. I want to build a few of them, so it's quite good fun. And I think this radius block, is one of the most important tools I've had. So with that, I'll close this out, and I hope you like the results of the neck so far. I'm really pleased with it. The next episode, I'll be routing the body, seeing if the neck fits, and working out where I'm going to put the electronics, and I've got some ideas for that. So catch you in the next episode.